Today, what we're going to be speaking about is overcoming discouragement in leadership. Now, anyone who's been leading for any amount of time knows that discouragement is just part of the package. It's part of what leaders face. So every leader is going to face discouragement. Often you step out in leadership and you're really excited about it, maybe a bit nervous about it, but you're taking the step and it's like a new thing. But if we're not prepared to deal with the discouragement can actually cause us to not just despise leadership or despise our role, but to actually exit from the impact that God wants us to have in other people's lives before our time is done. And so discouragement really is the road that we regularly walk down in order to get to the city of success. If we want to get to a place that we think is what success looks like for us, discouragement is just going to be a part of that journey, right? It's the price between where things are now and where you want them to be. Whenever you step in as a leader, you think, oh, I want something to become better because I'm a part of it. I see something greater for the people that I'm leading or for the areas that I'm leading. But we see something better, but then we're dealt with the reality of where we actually are. And that's why leaders are there, to help us to move towards that place. And really, discouragement is part of the price tag of getting to that place. Another way of saying it that I like to think about it is that it is the gap between your vision, expectation, and where you are now. The gap between your vision and the expectation that you have of your role and where you are now, there's a gap that exists there. And that gap is full of risk. It's full of opportunities, and it's also full of excitement. There's great things that can happen in that space, but it's also filled with disappointment and discouragement. And in today's sort of talk on overcoming discouragement as a leader, I want to give us 10 things that can help encourage us. Just from a quick show of hands or emoji buttons, has anybody faced discouragement in their leadership journey so far? Yeah, good. Yeah. Now this can be in church or in other employment. Yeah. And I think it's something that's super, super real for us. And where it comes from is almost that place of hoping people, maybe you find yourself saying this in leading a life group or a team or a staff. You go, I'm hoping that people will grow. I'm pouring into people. I'm spending time. I'm spending money. I want people around me to grow and to get something out of my leadership, but they don't grow. Or teach people, when you teach people something and they just don't seem to be learning, and I think kids' church leaders face this a lot of the time, where you're sowing into children, but you don't really see the fruit of it within the first 6 months or a year, right? It's a long-term thing, but people just don't seem to be learning what you're teaching. For some people, it can come down to a relational betrayal, where you thought you had a close relationship and someone betrayed you, or you were leading in some area and someone said something behind your back, or the relationship didn't go quite as well as you hoped, and you feel betrayed or you feel misunderstood. For me in my leadership and with Lara, we feel misunderstood so often. It's crazy. And part of it is just leaders get misunderstood. Your intention and what people hear, sometimes they don't quite connect and don't quite correlate. And so misunderstanding can often happen. And because of misunderstanding, just getting discouraged and going, is this even, why am I doing this? Is it supposed to be this way? And like I was saying, Lara and I, we've experienced all of these in different seasons of our leadership journey. When we were leading in life group, we experienced it. When we were leading on a staff, I experienced it. When I'm leading the church, I've experienced it, even more of it. But any person who's been through any kind of leadership on any kind of level will have experienced it and will experience it again in the future. And, I remember there were different seasons in our church, even within the last 4 or 5 years, of people who have left the church and have, for whatever reasons, and how I felt so discouraged in those seasons, because sometimes it's misunderstanding, sometimes there's other things that are at play, and just wondering, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep hitting the wall in this area? And if I allowed it, discouragement would have taken me out of our leadership journey quite some time ago, and even just in the recent past. So the devil wants to use discouragement to kill your hope that things can get better, to kill your dreams, to kill that vision that God put inside of you. And what he does is he reaches into your heart and he pulls it out, because discouragement kills destinies, it kills passion, and makes us want to give up. But I love the way that God uses discouragement. Have you ever had this where you go, God, I need more, I just want more patience. Does God give you more patience, or does he give you circumstances to be patient in? God, I just need more strength. Great. Here's some things to make you stronger. And so when God gives you a God-sized vision or dream or role or responsibility, what he has to do on the inside of us is actually make us bigger people, bigger containers to handle what he's giving us. And the way that he does that is not just by making us big on the inside, but through facing periods of discouragement that causes us to grow in conviction, keep trusting him, and some other things that I'm going to list just now. But God is actually trying to get us to fit into the destiny that he has got for us and that he's got for other people. Make no mistake that when the evil one strikes the shepherd, the sheep scatter. So leadership is vitally important, and it's vital for us to learn how to navigate seasons of discouragement so that we can fit into the destiny that God has got for us, that we can help other people step into their purpose and into their destiny. And so if we overcome discouragement and we stay the course, we will make a significant impact in the lives of other people. I'm so thankful for leaders who go, you know what? It's not all about me. God has entrusted me, not just with the title or a role, but he's entrusted me with people that he loves. Now, how can I help them to grow? And how do I not let discouragement take me out in the process? Because I promise you something, that discouragement wants to take you out of all that God has got for you and for the people that you lead. And so 10 ways to overcome discouragement in leadership. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time in any one of these. I want to kind of hit a few. And I encourage you, if you've got a pen and a notepad ready, or you've just got a photographic memory, but just to jot down some things, because when we finish the session, we're going to break up into groups like we did last time and just discuss one area that you want to get better in. And on our leadership journey, if we can just get 1% better each time, we'll find that we're going to continue to grow as leaders. Okay, so you ready for 10 ways to overcome discouragement in leadership? Just thumbs, emojis, helps me know. Dumi is throwing a party because we're halfway through. So is Cindy. Great. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks, guys. Okay, number one. And again, if you've got any questions through it, just please use the message feature, and we'll get to it before the end. Great. So number one, the first way to overcome discouragement in leadership is to strengthen yourself in the Lord. Strengthen yourself in the Lord. We find in 1 Samuel chapter 30 where David and his men, they go off to fight a war, but they get sent back from that war before even fighting. And when they get back to their home in Ziklag, what they find is that there have been raiders that came through the town. They burnt everything, and they took all of their family, all of their wealth, all of their possessions. They took them away, and they were taking them back home. And David finds himself in this moment where not only are his wives and children captured, but so is his entire group, his entire army, all of their family, all of their wives, children, all of that taken. And it says that the men that were there, they wept so bitterly because of grief of their spirit, like so grieved. And they were even thinking and considering murdering David there because of what they'd experienced. How many of you would feel incredibly discouraged if all of a sudden you were supposed to be doing this thing for God, building, you're the next king, God's with you, you're all fighting battles, doing God's work, and then while you're off doing something, the enemy comes and snatches something so precious away from you? I would feel deeply, deeply discouraged. But what it says is that David strengthened himself in the Lord. And then he asked the Lord, what should he do? Should he go and pursue them? And the Lord says, yes, he's going to give them victory. And so he recovers everything that was taken from them and more. And the key thing here is when we face discouragement, even deep, deep discouragement, we need to go into a place where we can be strengthened. And the place where we need to be strengthened on the inside is not distractions on YouTube or Netflix or something else. It's actually to come to God and say, God, what now? God, what is your word saying? God, I need life in me. God, and just bringing the situation to the Lord. And then asking God, what do I do next? God, make me stronger. God, I want to feel your presence. God, show me what to do. So actually take the time to be strengthened in the Lord before you respond to anything. Sometimes maybe you get a discouraging text message, and the first reaction for some of us is to get on the front foot and try to solve the problem and sort it out. Hey, what if we just took a moment and say, God, I'm committing this to you, and actually find strength that comes from the Holy Spirit in that. So the first thing to do is to strengthen the Lord. And let's not wait just for bad circumstances. Let's try to strengthen ourselves daily for the task ahead of us. Let's get strength in the morning so that we can fight the battles of the afternoon rather than asking strength just for when we need it. Okay, the second way to overcome discouragement in leadership is to lean into your leadership mentors or to lean into your leadership friends. Isolation is a killer for leaders. It's a killer for anybody, but particularly for leaders facing discouragement. Why? When you're discouraged and if you isolate yourself, you start believing the narrative of your own thoughts. You start believing the lie that the enemy sows into your mind. Lies that sound like this: you're not good enough. You're not equipped for this. You can't handle this. You're too old to do this. You're too young to do this. And fill in the blank of whatever the enemy tells you in seasons of discouragement. What you need to do is actually lean into people who are trusted friends. Maybe it's your leader. Maybe it's someone who leads in another area, but there's a friendship relationship there, so that they can give you perspective. They can give you encouragement and build you up. Think about Elijah after he has just ministered incredible miracle on Mount Carmel. All the false prophets slaughtered, killed, the worship of God exalted, a mighty rain flood coming in, gets a death threat from Jezebel, and then all of a sudden crumbles and runs away in isolation and basically says to God, God, I am useless. Kill me now. Now, that's where discouragement can easily take you. Now, what he didn't have is someone to go, hey, what are you doing? An angel came, God came. But what we need is in seasons of discouragement is to go to our leader and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is how I'm feeling. Do you have any advice for me? Paul said it this way to Timothy. He said, you've got many teachers, but few fathers. And I think what we need to lean into is spiritual moms and dads, leaders in our lives, we can go to and say, we need help with this. Will you pray for me about this thing? And why it's important to have leaders speaking into you is because they've been through seasons like that before, and they understand, so they can offload, they can instruct, they can edify, they can build you up. Proverbs also says, in a multitude of counselors, there's victory. We need perspective, we need encouragement. So lean into leadership mentors. Personally, when I'm facing decisions that feel too big, or when I'm facing discouragement of different ministry seasons, I make sure that I speak to people who are my leaders. Every leader needs a leader. Every pastor needs a pastor. And just through those seasons just through those conversations have helped me through incredibly difficult seasons of discouragement. So if you're facing discouragement, find someone that you can talk to who is a leader that can help you. Number three is forgive quickly, bless continually. Forgive quickly and bless continually. We never want to be the kind of people that can't move on from bad experiences. You know, the kind of people where we face discouragement, it's someone who's betrayed us, or someone, you know, who we just we had such big hopes for them, or why is it that people don't seem to want to help, or whatever that reason for discouragement is. If it's a person, we don't want to carry around and never move on from that conversation and go, you know what, why did they leave my group? What was their thing? And maybe it was you. Maybe you were the reason they left the group. But you don't want to hold on to those negative emotions. You don't want to let offense to start creeping into your heart. You actually want to forgive as quickly as possible. And I always think of it as think the best of someone's reason, not the worst. So forgive quickly. Why is it important for you to forgive? Well, for your own salvation, it's important to forgive. Forgiveness is one of those areas that we need to deal with as quickly and as efficiently and effectively as possible. We don't want to carry around unforgiveness in our heart. And how do you know if you haven't forgiven someone? It's hard to bless them. So how does this mean? Like you have a conversation and someone says, it comes up, I can't believe so-and-so left my life group. Oh man, what were they doing? You know what? They're just so rebellious, or you know what? They don't care. They whatever that conversation is like, we don't want to hop onto that train. What we want to do is like, they've left, but I pray that they have an exceptional experience in another group, or you know, they've betrayed me in some way, or betrayed you in some way. It's to forgive them and go, I really hope that they find happiness and fulfillment in God. Like actually let that become a prayer. And what you'll find is the way that you start speaking about it actually has a huge impact on your heart. And rather than clouding your heart with all this negativity and doubt and discouragement, actually leaning into that you live in the world that you form by your words, and start blessing people and start blessing the areas where you should feel discouraged. You say, you know what, devil, I'm not going to allow this discouragement to dictate my life. I'm going to control the narrative, and I'm going to be a voice that blesses. I'm going to be a voice that lifts up. You know, that a few of you would know that there have been people through many seasons of our church life that have left the church. And for me, it's so discouraging looking at any photo from our church older than 12 months. Why? Because I see all the faces that are no longer there. And instead of getting to a point of, I can't believe they did this, I can't believe they did that, actually going, you know what, Swen? They love God. They're trying to follow Jesus, and actually start blessing them and their families. And I want, even as us in this room, in the Zoom room or video calls, actually go, you know what? I'm going to let my discouragement turn to a season of blessing. And that actually just helps your heart. Remember this, that even Jesus had Judas, who he loved, right? Jesus never criticized, condemned Judas, right? He loved Judas, even though he betrayed him to the cross. And in our seasons of leadership, we're going to have people that just do stuff for no reason. Sometimes it might be your fault. Other times it's their fault. But it's just going to happen. Number 5. We're at the halfway point here. No, sorry, not number 5, number 4. Let me move quicker. Be patient, because it's a process and not a place. Leadership is a process. It's not a place. You never say, oh, I have now arrived as the most successful leader on the planet. No, it's always a process. Think of it in terms of agriculture, not in terms of technology, right? We think everything on the click of a button, or, if I'm hungry, I can, I'll order my food when I leave the office. By the time I get home, food will be hot and piping at the front door with Uber Eats, But don't think about it in that way. Think about it in the arena of, hey, a farmer actually has to till the soil, plant the seed, water the seed, let the sun do its work, and look after it for a couple of months before the food ever arriving onto the plate, right? We don't arrive at a place of success. We want to be patient. And so, well, how does this apply into the areas of discouragement? If there are people in your group that you just wish were further along and they're not, just be patient with them. Be patient with the process. Discipleship is like agriculture. It takes time. And eventually, one day, the penny drops, God speaks, and growth happens almost way quicker. The growth will catch up. Just keep sowing seed, watering seed, sowing seed, watering seed, nourishing it, and God will make it grow. So be patient. Don't judge your leadership journey on the last 3 months. Number 5, halfway point, is that leaders are learners. Leaders are learners. Continually invest in your growth. There's a quote that's attributed to Abraham Lincoln, and it was said this: if you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I will spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe. See, there's a reason there. Because if you hammer away at a tree with a dull axe, it's going to take you so much longer to chop the tree down. But if you spend time sharpening your skill, getting better, the axe head is sharp and it cuts through that tree with a lot less resistance. It's way more effective. And so why are leaders continual learners? Because leaders always want to get better at leading. You will always face discouragement in leadership. But some things that are of our own making of discouragement, we can actually shortcut or reduce because we get better at leading. Leadership is not an endowment of a sudden, like you have this ability. Some people, yes, but more often than not, it's a skill that we can all develop. So let's get better. What does it mean? It means maybe reading a book on leadership, listening to a podcast once a month, jumping onto a leadership conversation on video call once a month, just taking times to get a little bit better, 1% better, sharpening the axe so that you can be more effective in your leadership journey. Number 6, is this helpful so far to anybody? I see some people writing. Yeah? Okay, good.
Yep.
Number 6. This one comes out of a conversation that I had with somebody recently, and it's one that I've used many, many times, is build with those who are there. Number 6, build with those who are there. What does this mean? It means that sometimes we get discouraged because people aren't as committed as we hope they would be. They just don't seem to come to life group as often as they should do. Not because it makes you feel better, but because it's good for their souls. It's good for their lives. Same thing about church. Same thing even about friendships. And we can get so discouraged because people aren't there. And so rather than spending negative energy and time thinking and getting discouraged by the people that aren't there, rather be encouraged by the people who are there and build with them. You cannot build a house with the bricks that aren't available. If you want to take time in the potter's house, making a beautiful, beautiful clay vase, You can only use the clay that you have available to you. You can't pine and wish and get discouraged by the clay you wish you had or that you had last week. That is just a sort of a free ride to discouragement. With the people that you're leading, don't run after all the people that just don't seem to be there. Build with the people that are there, because they're committed, they're growing, they're actually producing fruit. And then you can actually build a group. And people will self-select and some people will jump out of it. That's just, unfortunately, part of life. I remember in the early days when we planted the church in Elkanah, we were 60 people and 70 people and 80 people and 90 people and so on and so forth. I had to continually remind myself, Swain, build with the people that are around. God's going to use them. God's going to build something into them. And so don't be discouraged by the bricks that aren't available. Use the ones that are. Number 7 is closely linked with the previous point, which is give your best to those who are fruitful. Give your best to those who are unfruitful. Invest your best into those who are fruitful. Why do I say this? I say this because as leaders with big hearts, we want to love everybody. And who is it that seems to get our attention the most? It's often the people who have the bigger problems, or the people that you're trying to hang on to, but they're showing you that they don't actually want to. They love being around the room from time to time, but they don't actually want the responsibility to grow. Now, we love those people. We care for those people. The door is always open for those people. But what we want to do is make sure that we don't give all of our best to people who are just like, who are not going to use it, who are not going to grow from it. And then you've got nothing to give to the people who are actually fruitful. It's almost like, I'm going to look after this person over here who's going through all of these problems all the time. I'm going to give my best to them. And then to the person who's actually showing some fruit and showing this intention to grow and wants to become a 2IC or whatever, you've got like scraps left over them because all of your emotional energy has been spent over here. Bible almost says it in this way, and maybe I'm using it a bit loosely, but don't cast your pearls to the pigs because you're going to end up being trampled on. What you want to do is make sure that you're giving your best resources to the people who are going to be most fruitful, and then leaving the door of opportunity open to other people who maybe aren't fruitful, aren't faithful, but you always want to leave a door. You don't want to close the door on people. Jesus, I think he taught it so well in another parable where he was talking about the talents, where he gave the talents to the different servants. And the ones that he gave talents to, who multiplied it, they received even more. But then he gave a talent to someone who didn't use it, and he took it away from them. See, Jesus wasn't giving a lot of talent to someone who was unfaithful. We want to make sure, or unfruitful, we want to make sure that we're giving the best of ourselves to people who are going to multiply it and produce harvest. Hope that makes sense. So for like when you think about it in this way, on a practical sense, people in life group, if you're spending 80% of your time with 1 or 2 people that aren't growing, you're actually not leading effectively. You're letting down the other 6 to 8 people in your group who actually do want to grow. Rather invest into the people who want to grow and let them take care of the people who are needing extra help. Does that make sense? I hope it doesn't sound callous. I just want to maximize your time and reduce your discouragement. Okay, number 8, remember why you started. Remember why you started. It's so easy to, when we get discouraged, to forget and just think, well, I'm obviously not good enough for this. No, why did you start leading? You started leading because God called you to it, because someone invited you into it. You were chosen. And so just remembering that when you can't see much ahead of you because discouragement has clouded your vision or your heart, holding on to that conviction, the clarity of your conviction as to why you're leading in the first place, will get you through a season of discouragement. Okay, so remember why you started. Number 9, be clear on your purpose. Be clear on your purpose. Like, what are you actually trying to do? Like, what is your purpose in life? Why are you doing it? What's the plan? What's the vision look like ahead? You know, for us within kingdom work, we're trying to make disciples of Jesus. We're trying to help them to grow. You know, so the season of discouragement, if you get plucked out in that season, those people are actually going to be affected in a negative way, and you're going to be called off track from your purpose. No, just keep steady, keep the journey, fulfill the purpose that God has got for you. And, you know, for us at Revive Church, our purpose comes down to preaching Jesus and making disciples, right? And the way that we say that is that we want to help people to find life and purpose through Jesus. We believe God for revival in our city. So everything that we do and every discouragement that we face, we know why we're going through it. Is because at the end of it, we see revival. At the end of it, we see people coming alive in Jesus. I mean, it's amazing just over the last couple of weeks, seeing so many people come to Christ. And then we want to help people to find their purpose in life. Not just I'm saved and I'm on the Gospel Express. No, I'm actually here because God has called me for a greater purpose in life. I want to help people to discover that. And so when we go through different seasons and we realize, oh, you know what, this is just part of us getting to where God's calling us to, it makes us stronger and more resilient. And my last one is this, number 10. You ready? Number 10. Don't quit in the dip. Don't quit in the dip. That pretty much means this. Don't make huge decisions like quitting when you are at your most tired, your most discouraged, because then you're most vulnerable. I've seen this so many times in people's lives where they quit when they're going through a difficulty. And then they actually end up worse than what they were. The discouragement, the devil is trying to take you out. What God is trying to do is make you bigger. Going through the dip actually makes you more resilient, stronger as a leader, equips you more than any training session ever could. And I'm not saying that all quitting is bad. Like, there is a time to quit and there is a season to quit, and quitting can be healthy and good at certain times. But it's never a good time to quit when you're in a dip. The best time to quit is actually when you're doing well, when things are growing, when there's fruitfulness that you can see, because then you're making a big decision at the best part of yourself, not at the worst part of yourself, not in a season of discouragement. And if you keep quitting every time you get discouraged, you actually start preparing your future by saying, I'm never able to go through difficult things. Perseverance is a powerful kingdom principle. And Lara was telling me before this that when Samuel was little, she went through postnatal depression and wanted to quit kids ministry. Now you gotta understand, it was heavy. Like, we moved in with family. It was a serious time. And she committed herself to continuing to serve God, serve those kids in the kids ministry, even though she was carrying all these difficulties around with her. And actually, she just knew that if she quit, she would have not seen God do such amazing things within those ministries and using her powerfully in that way. She made it through and got healthy and could see the great things that God was doing. And so let's not quit in the dip, but let's persevere. And God's going to form on the inside of us an ability to carry the destiny that has God called out for us. And remember this, discouragement is just a season. There are so many amazing things in leadership where we get to see people around us grow, people around us step out in faith, people around us grow into what God has called them to do, see people become bigger people on the inside, where we see people become disciples of Jesus, leading their own groups, leading their own teams, and knowing that we had a small part to play in that. God is using leaders to build his kingdom. And so what an amazing opportunity we have. So don't let discouragement take you out, is what I'm trying to say.